Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. We're delighted you're here. We broadcast 2 hours, Monday through Friday, from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. John is engineering the broadcast at Genesis Communications Network in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. And for the next 2 hours, we're going to be talking about some really disturbing topics. We're going to be talking about communitarianism. We're going to be talking about hospitals selling body parts. We're going to be selling body parts at auction, and we're going to be talking about the new language, the new code speak. Lark in Texas is with us. Welcome, Lark.
Hey, good morning there, Vince.
Good morning. Good morning. Lark, I just wanted to share with our broadcast classroom that I just got off the phone about 10 minutes ago with Werner Bach in New Brunswick, Canada. Very alarming. Werner was attacked. He believes he was attacked chemically. Over the weekend, he ended up in the hospital, could not breathe. His lady of many, many years said that he was gone, and he came back. He came back to life. Very, very frightening experience. And he was brought to the hospital, and the bottom line is they thought that he should have a psychological evaluation after being unable to breathe. He feels that he was chemically gassed. He believes it's done. People do this from near the property at night, and he was taken down by it, not out, but down. And he was telling me about the chemical spraying that is done. He's in his 70s. He's telling me about the chemical spraying of the area so that they can make the land not usable for farming, to drive down the price of farms so that the farms can be purchased at fire sale prices. And there's a possibility that his farm is one that they want. And I can tell you right near the surrounding farms, near us, one farm over from us is available for sale. The farm across the road from that one is available for sale. What I'm saying is, within a mile and a half, 2 miles of our farm, our neighbors' farms are for sale. And I believe that farmers are not able to hang on as well as they used to be able to. And if you look at farming, we are among some of the lowest paid occupations, if you will, that exist today. And all the farmers, except for Mrs. Finelli and me, we're the only ones I know that don't have jobs to support our farm. Now, I'm on the radio, and I travel, and we sell a few water filters and that kind of thing. But other than that, we're trying to farm and have the farm pay for itself, and it's getting darn near impossible. So farmers are going out of business. Other farmers are trying to hang on by having the husband and the wife work at jobs, and they're trying to hang on. Other farmers are selling chunks of their farm, pieces of their farm. They're selling their farm equipment to hang on. They realize that the model of, buying new equipment so they can be more efficient is not the way to go, because the equipment is unaffordable with the prices of the farm products they're selling. Cattle, I looked yesterday, cattle prices for the most desirable calves, the 400-pound to 500-pound calves, $1.56 per pound. I don't think that's translating to restaurant prices. I think restaurant prices have not come down. They've gone up, but the price to the cattle farmer has gone down. So your beef that you're buying is selling for a lot less than it used to. A couple of years ago, beef was $3.60 a pound on the hoof, and now it's $1.56. And it's a real tough situation. Lark, does any of what I'm saying, do you see any of the dots in your world that connect with what I just said?
Well, of course, I must say that for what they're charging for beef in the stores does not comport with the low prices that the rancher or the farmer is receiving. That's for sure. But I do know, and I have known for some time, that one of the big aspects of the overarching communitarian agenda, as set forth by trade association groups like the American Planning Association, is in fact to control the food supply. And increasingly, I study the markets worldwide on food and raw foodstuffs. And increasingly what we're seeing beef and poultry even, and of course fruits and vegetables coming from overseas sources. Of course, it's all designed for these pack 'em and stack 'em metroplexes that they won't herd everybody into so they can better control them. It has everything to do with the work that the Nature Conservancy is doing, in tandem with the American Bar Association, because, of course, everything is being merged, shall we say, toward a system of communitarian law. I would say it's pretty near complete from what I can see right here in America. Same in Canada, same in Mexico. This is a Soviet or a Chinese-style system that's being merged with Western systems. It's called convergence. And it's very clear that, they call it they called it rewilding of nature, and it's all part of sustainable development, which your average man on the street today, your average American, Canadian, or Mexican doesn't understand, simply because they're unfamiliar with Communitarian Code Speak, and they don't realize that they're being bombarded with it every single day. People coming out of universities today are steep in it, and they understand that unless they adopt the language of Communitarian Code Speak, they're simply not going to advance into the ranks of the nomenclatura, which is the lead agents, the management class, boards of directors class, people that work within the bureaucracies of what we used to call government, because government really doesn't exist except as a form of mind control here in the 21st century. And that's how I see it. It doesn't surprise me one bit. I'm saddened to hear about Werner. He's just a wonderful guy, and I know he's been under assault for really probably 20 years or better. from what I can tell. I mean, I've heard him many times on the radio. I've spoken to him personally. And, it just doesn't surprise me. I once had a man about 15 years my junior who used to work for me. This is going back to about 93, 94. So it's been more than 20 years. But his career wasn't going well for him. Everybody in his family was doing well. And he wasn't. And so he had come to a crossroads in his career. And, you know, just for the hell of it, he decided he was going to move from Texas. He was native born. And he was going to move to Colorado. And like a lot of young men, he thought, well, okay, I'm going to, you know, he was used to working all the time because he was a person who was really devoted to culinary art. He was going to make a career of it, and he became impassioned in the same way that I was impassioned by these topics in my late teens and early 20s. And, you know, he was, you know, these are people that take pride in their work. It's not about money so much, but what they're looking for is validation that they're on the right path and people appreciate what they're doing. Just like Werner, like many people that you probably know, and I know, your listeners know. And anyway, what happened is he went to a club, and he was not much of a drinker anyway. He liked to sip beer. He met, he saw a girl that was sitting with several other girls at a couple tables pulled together in this nightclub. And she caught his eye. As it turns out, this girl was an only child. She was a pretty brunette, slightly chubby. And because she wasn't drop dead gorgeous, but of course, to him, she was just adorable. He decided to make small talk with her. And it turns out they hit it off. And long story short, they married, had children. And her father turned out to be the largest landowner in the state of Colorado.
Lark in Texas. This is USA Prepares. I'm Vince Finelli, and we're talking about communitarianism, and we're also going to talk about selling body parts. And I've got a comment on the rewilding of nature that you mentioned. Lark in Texas is with us. Lark, you mentioned rewilding of nature. And I've met some of the soil and water conservation minions and some of the USDA minions that I guess they're called agents. And they'll come to a farm and they'll tell you about a program that they have, a cost-sharing program. I've discussed this several times on the air. What they'll do is they'll pay 75% of the cost of a project. And typically the projects that I've seen and discussed with these guys is fencing. You know, fencing's pretty expensive. And what they'll do is they'll say, you know, we'll pay 75% of the cost of your fencing. What we'll do is we'll divide up your grazing land. And, you know, you got some woods over there, and you got a stream, and you got some ponds, and, you know, there's erosion that we have to worry about, and we want to talk about the quality of the grasses, and, you know, we want to make it better for everybody. So what we'll do is we'll fence the cows out of the woods, because you certainly don't want them in the woods, because they'll step on their roots, and they damage the trees, and, you know, they want to get out of the hot sun, and so it's so bad for everybody in the environment. And so what we'll do is we'll pay you 75% to fence the cows out of the woods, the ponds, the streams. And by the way, we need like a buffer. And so not only the edge of the stream or the edge of the pond, we need like 35, 50, 75 feet buffer from that area. So what they do is they expand the area that they want to fence out. They want to fence the cows out, in our case, they want to fence cows out of the woods and so forth. And by the time they're done with the farm, you can't use it. It's difficult to use because they've got wire everywhere. And then what they do is they'll pay 75% of the cost of boring a hole in the ground and turning that into a well, and they'll put in the well pipe, then the distribution pipe, and the cattle waterers. We're talking, this could be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of expense or more. They'll pay 75% of it, but by the time you're done, you got your cows baking in the sun because there's no place for them to go because you've fenced them in with barbed wire into the hot sun. There's no escape into the woods where it's cool. They can't go swimming in the pond and cool off because they're fenced out of the pond. They can't get a drink of water out of the creek or stream because they're fenced out. And then in the wintertime, there's no place for them to go to get out of the winds and the snow. And when it rains, there's no place for them to take cover because, well, the Soil and Water Conservation Department and the U.S. Department of Agriculture has enticed farmers into this, we'll call it rewilding of their farms. They want to send it back to nature.
They were incented to engage in dishonorable contracts. And, these buffer zones are oftentimes easements and so forth. And the pretext is always to preserve the environment and to ensure sustainable development, to be good stewards of the land. What you've in effect done, and this is just exactly what law enforcement agencies throughout the U.S. and Canada have done, is they've entered into a contract, and when it's kind of like the law enforcement agencies back in the early to mid '90s, sheriff's department, Metro Police Department, Highway Patrol, FEMA, you name it. They took a carrot and stick approach. They said, okay, we've got this government cheese, and yeah, there's a few strings attached. But see, those strings, the devil's always in the details. And a lot of times they'll use coded language, in which case, what you're confronted with is lies by omission. You don't know it at the time. So you're thinking, well, I'd like to have that government cheese, that agency cheese, because, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And the same way that these farmers and ranchers get hooked by companies like Syngenta, ConAgra, Monsanto. Back in the 30s, I understand that we had programs for people, and they still exist today, where these large ranchers and farmers, these landowners, would be actually paid not to grow certain crops or not to raise certain animals.
That's absolutely right. When we come back, let's talk a little bit more about it, and we'll talk about how there are those in the know who get the government cheese and put the rest of us who don't want to or don't know about these programs at a severe disadvantage. It's not a level playing field. We'll be right back. Lark in Texas is with us, and if you'd like to go to his web spot, Lark in Texas, LarkInTexas.blogspot.com. And if you want a quick link, just go to usaprepares.com, page 1. Top of page 1, you'll see a link to Lark's blogspot. Lark, we're talking about the farmers, and it seems in our neck of the woods right here in Missouri that the big family names, the most popular names, have an inside track on government handouts. And they're the ones that are involved in politics. Their families are connected, and they know what's happening. They have the government jobs, and they hear the government news, and they know when these programs are going to open up, and they seem to have the inside track. And the small farmers, the ones who are not the big names, are furious, absolutely furious that the same families seem to get the government cheese over and over and over. Now, in our case, if you just compare us to, the guys getting the government cheese, if we want a well, we have to drill it, and it's, $5,000 to $10,000 to drill a hole in the ground and get some water out. If we want to buy cattle waterers, we can buy them, and they're like $700, $800 a piece, and that's what I paid for them, and that's uninstalled. And then it takes, maybe $800 worth of labor to just put one of those things on the ground and cover it up. It takes a backhoe to do it because they're so heavy. And then there's the digging of the pipe. And so we are at a tremendous disadvantage because these other guys are getting fencing and they're getting wells and cattle waterers. And if they want seed, there are seed programs to reseed fields. And then liming fields, they can get their liming paid for, at least 3/4 of it. And then fertilizer, they can get that paid 3/4 of it. But the rest of us who are not on the inside, we have to pay 100% of it. So they're taking money from us through tax dollars. Actually, they're stealing it from us. And they're distributing it to their friends.
Well, and because they're brainwashed to become... Go ahead.
They put us at a serious disadvantage. Now, in the long run, these small family farms are pretty efficient because generally the family runs the farm, and there aren't a lot of hired people, and we do things as cost effectively as we possibly can because it's our money. It's not like corporate money; it's our money. So we really try to be very cost effective, and we try to buy, in our case, used equipment rather than new equipment. Where we haven't been brainwashed into thinking that new is better, and debt is better. We don't think that. So we're hanging on, but there's so many farmers that barely can hang on, and they're going to go under. They're going to go under, and the price of beef is going to be low for a while, and then those farms are going to be gone, and then the remaining farmers are going to have a little bit more control because they're going to be bigger. And what's happening in America is that the farms are getting larger. The farm size in terms of acreage is getting larger, and the age of the farmer average age is getting older as we speak. So
this is of course integral to their plan to make all the people living on the land to be totally subservient and dependent on these various agencies of our governance. The government today has fallen to the wayside as we grew up knowing government to be. It's not representative. And so basically what we have is a system that the Founding Fathers faced prior to the Revolutionary War. We have taxation without representation. And there's very good reasons for that from the very beginning, which is why I don't call myself a constitutionalist any longer, as I've come to understand the larger picture, and as I've come to understand the true history of the settlement of the Americas, and particularly the U.S. states. But just to put a cap on what I was recounting earlier about my friend in Colorado, my coworker. The young man looked up to me. I was rather much like a mentor to him. He had some difficulties in his marriage from time to time, and he would call me up to cry on my shoulder and this and that, and I was happy to lend a hand. It turns out that his father-in-law, his wife, remember, was an only child, is the largest landowner in the state of Colorado. He was also the past chairman and then honorary chairman of the Colorado Nature Conservancy. He was also president of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve. And the man was very wealthy, and he owned many businesses, one of which was that he managed private property around the world on behalf of their owners so that these people could go on hunting and fishing expeditions. And it was rather much like a timeshare. And my friend Jimmy, he loved nothing more than to hunt and fish. And so naturally, he was installed as a guide. I mean, they literally book wealthy people at these various private retreats large swaths of land to go safari hunting in Africa, to go fishing and protected lands because they're privately owned around the world, and they pay pretty good money. But let me share with you something from an ebook that you or your listeners can purchase on the internet. About $17. It's an ebook, and it's written by Nikki Rapana and Nordica Friedrich. It can be found just by searching "Living Outside the Dialectic," and you're going to find Nikki's blog, and you're going to see a cover on the above the fold, top of the page, for an ebook, which is actually two books in one. The first is called 2020, important date, Our Common Destiny. There's even something that you can read called The Constitution in 2020. Do a search. The Constitution in 2020. Just like the Soviet and the Chinese systems, they always had 5-year plans, 10-year plans, 20-year plans, even 50-year plans. And they work them. They're actually indoctrinated to become community organizers. Parents and prospective students oftentimes fail to read the mission statements of these colleges and universities today. I remember reading one 10 years ago, and they talked about change agents and global citizens. I was astonished. I mean, this is just a small, Midwestern college. The mission statement. The same with our law enforcement agencies. When they brought in communitarian law, they changed the mission statements and the policies and procedures manuals, the use of force continuum, and we can go into that in more detail. But here's a in the appendices of this book called 2020, Our Common Destiny, the second book entitled The Definitive Anti-Communitarian Manifesto. They can go, your listeners or yourself can go to nord.twu.net /books, I believe. But nord.twu.net. And they can get this book themselves, and I highly recommend it. This woman and her daughter discovered this back in 1999 and 2000. And she's just been a font of information and activism for many, many years. And she lives 250 miles north of Fairbanks, Alaska, near Mount Wrangell, San Elias National Park. Outside of the Amazon is the largest swath of land in the Americas, which is considered a protective biopreserve. And this section is called Constitutional Law versus Communitarian Law. It's authored by Harvella Jones, who is a president or a past president of the National Homeowners Advocate Group, which is an LLC. Remember, the people coming out of these universities today are actually indoctrinated to be communitarian. And the more you know about the topic, and you know of its relevance to your life, the impact that it's having today upon your life, the lives of your loved ones and your friends and family members, etc., the more you're going to understand why this topic, why these words are so important. It begins, fasten your seatbelt. You are about to go on the ride of your life. There is a real threat to our quote-unquote freedom under constitutional law, and it is called communitarian law. Maybe some of you already know about this. I heard about it years ago from a member of this group. However, I was in denial for many years until now. When you see what is happening with our laws and the fact that after much publicity about homeowner association abuse, fraud, and various other violations reported to every agency, legislator, city government, and federal agencies such as HUD and FHA, with no action taken, you have to stop and start to believe in the conspiracy theory. The lack of real action certainly tells you there is something else going on that should be recognized, studied, and believed. And I'll continue after the break.
Lark in Texas, link on the website, usaprepares.com, page 1 will take you right to his website. We'll be right back. Lark in Texas is with us, and for those of you who feel that there's power in prayer, would you please consider offering your prayers for Werner Bach so that he regains his health as quickly as possible? And we talked about that. He was attacked the last few days, and he's regaining his health. He's out of the hospital now. So that's Werner Bach in New Brunswick, Canada. Lark, please continue.
I'm reading an excerpt, of course, from an article written by a past president of the so-called National Homeowners Advocate Group, which is an LLC, and it's entitled Constitutional Law versus Communitarian Law, and it can be found in an ebook, which combines two books in one, and it could be purchased online for a nominal price. The books are called 2020, Our Common Destiny, and The Definitive Anti-Communitarian Manifesto. And I'm reading from something called Constitutional Law versus Communitarian Law. And remember, it begins, fasten your seatbelts. You are about to go on the ride of your life. To continue, I characterize communitarian law as a supernova that has eclipsed our constitutional rights. I don't have to read every book about it to understand that it has been created to make sure property and constitutional rights as we now know them will one day be a dream. Some things have been eased into us while we were asleep. It is time to wake up and smell the mattress. The groundwork for communitarian law has been on the drawing board for years, and there are many artists. So I'm not going to continue with that, but let's remember the late Antonin Scalia. And while we have this whiz-bang thingy accessible to us, this technological utilitarian device called the Internet, simply do a search. Do a search. And type in, what is communitarian law? What is a communitarian? What is communitarianism? Remember, the late Justice Antonin Scalia said, do a search once again. Quote, the Constitution is dead, dead, dead. So I've been talking about these issues for six years or better on the radio because so few people have, Vince. And, I mean, it's one thing to speak wistfully of the past, the Revolutionary War, the war between the states, the history of the country, the, our love affair with the founding fathers and our so-called rights and so forth. But under communitarian law, nobody has rights unless they have concomitant duties and responsibilities. Just that simple. There's no such thing as unalienable rights. And let's not forget, the language is toyed with constantly throughout man's history. And, you look at the Lincoln Memorial today. What's inscribed? Inalienable rights. Do a search. What's the difference between unalienable rights and inalienable rights? So the Constitution is under constant assault, has been since way before any of us were born. And it's true today. But I want to see the so-called alternative media, red-blooded American patriot community, and I despise that word anymore. I want to see them up their game. And we must up our game, or we're dead in the water.
Yeah, and where else would we move? I mean, a number of those listening to this broadcast want to find a better place. They just want to be left alone. You know, the era of the belief that we had some freedoms in the 1950s and 60s. That's what a lot of us long for. A lot of us don't even want to travel because of the guys in blue who are looking for a reason to stop us and investigate and find whatever they can find, or if they can't find anything, plant it. We'll be back right after top of the hour news and commercial announcements for another hour with Lark. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Lark in Texas is with us. Link to larkintexas.blogspot.com on page 1 of USA Prepares. And Lark, you mentioned Homeowners Association, and I just wanted to let you know that our daughter bought a house many years ago, and she got a letter from the Homeowners Association showing a picture of her house, the front of her house, and indicating that the screens on the windows, a couple of them did not match. So the screens didn't. 2 of the screens or 3 of the screens didn't match all the other screens on the front of the house. And she was notified that if she did not get that corrected and have them all match, that she would be fined by the Homeowners Association. So our daughter responded in writing to the Homeowners Association and said, I don't know where you got this picture, but if you come and look at the house, you will notice that is not the way the house looks. That must have been an old picture from the previous owner, and the screens actually do match. Now, there's 2 things to be said here. One, if she was threatened by the Homeowners Association. The other, with a fine. The other is, who are these people? You know, I would laugh. I would just laugh at people telling me that I had to comply with cutting my lawn at a certain height and having, adhering to their whimsical rules and regulations. As a matter of fact, when I lived in the East Coast, I wanted to build a garage, and I was told by the Homeowners Association that the plans that I had for a freestanding 2-car garage was 2 feet too tall. And I debated it with them, and I said I wanted to do that because I wanted to have a storage space in the attic of the garage, and it was my garage. And they said, no, you can't do it. We feel that it's too tall. And even though that the color and the shingles and everything is in keeping and matches, with the existing house, that we're not going to approve it. And I thanked them. I thanked them for not approving it, and I told them that I would just put up a temporary structure. I found a circus tent, and it was I was going to erect that on the property as a temporary garage. It might last a few years, and it had, it was one of those circus tents that was multicolored. It was yellow and red and orange and white stripes. And would work just fine. And they decided that I might be serious. And they thought that just the horror of looking across the road at my circus tent for years, they felt that maybe my garage was in keeping with the neighborhood, and they approved it. So you can fight these guys, but you're absolutely right. They're a nuisance.
Well, I'm going to, I don't do that much radio anymore, Vince. I've done it for about 6 years now. Mm-hmm. And I must tell you that I haven't gotten much, there's really literally a couple handfuls of people that have kept up with these issues and have been curious enough about these issues to want to learn about them. Because I'm telling you, they impact our lives. And they're going to impact the destinies of our children's lives. We have got to get better informed. And I'm telling you, if you do not use that word communitarian, it's because you're afraid to lose your audience. You're afraid to lose the ear of your loved one or family member, because this word just sounds so inoffensive. Why do I need to know about that? No one ever says the word. The word you're going to hear, the word you're going to read, is that word community. Now, I sent out an email blast yesterday. It's awaiting moderation. It was to American Free Press writer, former radio talk show host, Mark Anderson's. It was a response to an article that he wrote on September 3rd at his website called thetruthham.com. Now, Mark is going to be speaking in Austin this weekend, along with John Stabmiller and Jim Mars and Ron Avery, an architect in Texas, and Christopher Bolin, to commemorate the 15th anniversary of 9/11. And so I sent out an email blast last night to about 175 folks. And it talks, the title of the article is The Giver Movie, Tyranny Overcome by the Human Spirit. Now, in an abridged form, it's a recent post at Henry Makow, MAKOW.com, under a different title. But it's about the same movie, which was released in 2014. Now, I don't go to Hollywood movies. I haven't been to one since 86. I don't watch the Talmud Vision. And I don't listen to the Jew snooze. But you can go on YouTube and you can watch The Giver, GIVER, official trailer number 1. This is a 2014 film starring Jeff Bridges and Taylor Swift. Now, they speak of this, it's a dystopian world that they talk about. And it sounds like a pretty good movie. Mark's article begins, The Giver is an intriguing movie which offers a glimpse or a glimmer of hope in a hopeless world, while serving as an apt metaphor for the kind of society in which we're captive while thinking we're free. Now, this is a Canadian, American, and South African movie that was recently brought out on Netflix, I guess. But it stars Meryl Streep, and apparently well-received movie. But I want to share with you my post real quick, awaiting moderation, because probably Mark is en route to this confab down in Austin, commemorate the 15th anniversary of 9/11. And this is how I style it. Bravo, Mark. Outstanding analysis, which it is. Thank you. Communitarianism and its direct connection to the implementation, and enforcement of communitarian law defines our present reality to a T. The storyline scripted and presented in the film's trailer, though, styles it cryptically and entirely too simply as that omnipresent capital C word, community. And in the movie, they don't refer to it as the community. They just simply refer to it as community. Thinking of Newspeak, George Orwell's 1984. But guess what? There's an entirely new lexicon from the Newspeak of 1984. Do an online search. What is a communitarian? Question mark. What is communitarianism? Question mark. What in the world is communitarianism? Question mark. Reference, The New World Order, 1939, H.G. Wells. He described the world coming into view in 1939 as world-socialism. It's a hybrid of libertarianism, communism, capitalism, and mercantilism, what we refer to as free trade. It's a system of parasitism. For you Christians out there, pull out your concordance. Look up the word freeloading. It's a system of neo-colonialism, neo-feudalism, neo-Platonism. It's a system of arrested development, that which seeks to thwart all human potential, including yours. A quote from Nikki Rapana, 2004. Whether we're taught it or not, we're all communitarians now. A magazine cover, Newsweek, 2009, and an article contained in the pages within by John Meacham, its former publisher, editor-in-chief. We are all socialists now. Look it up. We are all socialists now. Newsweek magazine, an article by John Meacham, 2009. And then this, contained therein. Marxists are de jure socialists and fascists are de facto socialists. They are both, however, socialists. The result of both types of socialism is the same: centralized government control of the means of production and the economy. I have links provided. If anyone wants to write me, that's not on my very small, humble list, larkintexas@gmail.com. I'll forward you the same information because I try to make things simple. I understand most folks, they have families, they have jobs. They haven't had the opportunity that I've had to research this topic 24/7 for, since 2004. Do a search. What the Communitarians stand for. Go to archive.org, the Wayback Machine, archive.org. Type in nord.tw.net. Read the Anti-Communitarian Manifesto before it was revised in 2012. Excellent, excellent overview. You've got to have it. Community Acquis, spelled ACQUIS. Look it up. Is the EU's new body of communitarian law. It's also in French, acquis communautaire, which translated into English means communitarian law. Now, you got a company in Germany or Britain doing business in the States, perhaps multinational corporations. They have contracts. And they're also doing business with the People's Republic of China, or the Soviet Union, or Israel, or wherever else in the world. If there is a contract dispute, under what court, under what jurisdiction would that dispute be adjudicated in a court of law? Communitarian law is never fixed law. It is a type of law that Americans, people around the world, are sadly wholly unfamiliar with, and they need to get up to speed now.
Lark, when we come back, let's talk about hospitals and their ever-expanding reach and what they're doing with body parts. We'll be right back. Class, quick announcement. RK Gun Shows has an event this weekend. Yep, this weekend in Knoxville, Tennessee, September 10 and 11. At the Knoxville Expo Center, Knoxville, Tennessee. Guns, ammo, accessories, military surplus, outdoor gear, and vendors willing to answer your questions. That's this weekend. Post on the website, usaprepares.com, page 1. Lark, hospitals are expanding their reach, and I was looking at a post, USA Today, and it's an old post. It's from 2004. Title, USA Today, There's Money in the Business of Body Parts. And that's just the title. What can you tell us about what hospitals are doing and what's going on with this expanded reach?
Well, I did a broadcast as a guest of Deanna Spangola's a few years back, and expanded on the work of a retired physician. I think the keyword search would be let's see. I'll think of it in just a moment. But back in 1968, there was an industry, a huge, profitable industry that was being prevented to emerge because the standard of care had not been harmonized with the so-called law. And the way it was conceived to harmonize the so-called standard of care, to permit the harvesting of organs and body parts, was to defined this thing called brain death. Now, before that time, the only way someone was dead, no longer alive, was if they no longer could respirate or breathe, and if their heart stopped beating. So they thought, well, what happens if somebody is clinically brain dead? How can we harmonize the standard of care, the language within the standard of care, vis-a-vis the hospital system across the country, within the American Medical Association, and within that would bear the imprimatur of the American Bar Association. And so these people got together, these bioethicists, these legal beagles, these so-called experts from the medical industry. Remember, the medical industry, do a search, Rockefeller Medicine, documentary, and an ebook, Rockefeller Medicine. And this is at a time when if you remember in years back to that time, you had these heart transplant patients that were getting hearts, first of baboons and chimpanzees, then of actual human beings. And so anyway, just to make a long story short, they came up with this non-scientific term of art, which they called brain death. And what happens with organ harvesting is if you're a donor and you have a son that's 19 years old, he's in a motorcycle accident, he's pretty banged up, he arrives at the hospital by ambulance, and then they all of a sudden, they hook him up, with all the tubes, and they put him on a respirator, they give him oxygen, and they monitor all his vital signs. At some point, and this was easily done in those days, you could keep a patient respirating or breathing, and you could keep his heart beating. But for whatever reason, he wasn't snapping to, or so the young boy's family members, perhaps even his wife's family members, etc., loved ones, were told. Well, the only way that you can harvest an organ is if the heart is beating and the lungs are respirating. You cannot sully the harvested organs with medications that would damage the organ to make it unsuitable for transplant. And I'll finish on the other side.
Lark is going to wipe the smiles right off our faces when we come back. Please don't touch that dial. Lark in Texas is with us. Lark, we've discussed death being of no respiration and no circulation, right? And then there's this new legal term, brain dead. So no response to stimuli, and it appears that the person is unresponsive and may be declared brain dead. And then we're going to talk about harvesting the organs of someone who has been declared brain dead. Please continue.
Well, I have a confirmatory bias, and I admit it. Every single member of my nuclear family was murdered by their doctor. And I don't say that to alarm anyone. I'm stating it as actual fact. Now, I could prove it if the courts had not been taken over by the communitarians, if the law schools hadn't been taken over by the communitarians, if the medical schools hadn't been taken over by the communitarians, and if, in fact, communitarian solutions always trump individual liberty in a communitarian system. You have to harmonize, you have to balance the rights, so-called, of the individual and juxtapose them against the rights of the nebulous so-called community. Don't be fooled.
Yeah, like Walmart or some big retail operation needs your farmland, and they've got a better use for it than you've had, even though the farm's been in the family for generations. But there's more revenue to be obtained by this other enterprise, this corporate enterprise. So you lose your farm. That's the kind of thing you're talking about, right?
Well, that goes to the 2005 Kello decision. Here's what you want to do. If you want to listen to that broadcast and see my accompanying research notes, go to Spingola, SPINGOLA.com, Spingola.com/Lark, LARK .html. And this is from a broadcast of January 21st, 2014. You're going to see all my research notes in preparation for the broadcast. You're going to hear a 2-hour discussion of these matters. And here are some texts which were central to that discussion. First of all, let me say that if you go to Life Guardian Foundation, let me make sure I get this right. I believe it's .org, Life Guardian Foundation .org. You're going to learn what affidavits and what documents to prepare so that you or your loved ones do not wind up like my brother, my younger brother, in 2011. What happened to him? He choked on a piece of steak. And within 2 minutes, 911 was called. But see, after a man or a woman or a child stops getting oxygen to the brain, after about 3 minutes, ask yourself, how long can you hold your breath underwater? Then something's going to impact their brain where they're going to lose motor function, and they're going to go into unconsciousness. LifeGuardianFoundation.org. Don't let it happen to you. Again, listen to the broadcast. Bengola.com/lark.html. Here are those texts. These are keywords. Look them up. A definition of irreversible coma. A change of heart and a change of mind, ? Technology and the redefinition of death in 1968. Go to your encyclopedia, Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. Another title, keyword search, the 2006 Revised Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. Hyphen, a law to save lives. Now, you're going to get all the information you need. But the bottom line is the patient who has been declared brain dead, they come out and say, we've done everything we can do. I see you're not an organ donor. Would you like to, your little Johnny or your little Sally, your wife or your husband, to give the gift of life to save somebody else's as his last contribution to humanity? And many people, when they get that driver's license, they say, yeah, I want to be an organ donor. Other people are not so sure. They say, I don't want to be an organ donor. But what's happening in these hospitals today is they play with the law and the language of the law to deceive. Now, to prepare for organ harvesting, they have to completely immobilize you. You cannot blink your eyes. You cannot cry out in pain. But rest assured, that patient is feeling pain, extreme pain, while they cut out their corneas, they cut out their heart, their liver, their kidneys, while they remove their skin for skin grafts. I mean, it's shocking, the types of things that are being harvested from live human beings in the hospitals today. Now, I've actually researched who has got the fat contracts in my neck of the woods here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the big players. These people are making money hand over fist, and they're auctioning off these body parts around the world in real time, vis-a-vis or via computer today, instant communication. So, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on that because I want to share a little bit more information with you and your listeners, Vince. But you've got it right there. You do not want to be an organ donor. End of story.
I just posted a link on page. I just posted a link on page 1 of USA Prepares to your notes in Deanna Spangol's broadcast with you. And I did a quick search on organ donation in Missouri. It's exactly what you said. It's dmv.org.mo, and it says, did you know a single organ can save up to 8 lives and impact the lives of more than 50 people?
Oh, yeah.
And they're selling this. And by the way, just as a quick note, there is this group that Obama signed an executive order in 2015 directing federal agencies to use behavioral science to sell their programs to the public. So Obama is trying to make us more amenable to government programs. And he used behavioral research to figure out how they could con us into agreeing with these programs that they have, these contracts that they want us to agree to. So you're absolutely positively right.
Let's remember, government, if you look the word up, you go to its etymological roots, it basically means mind control. Okay? Government does not exist. The word is governance. And governance means management. Communitarianism is a scientific, quote-unquote, dictatorship of the community. And you think you're part of the community, but you ain't. You're the target for private interest groups, whether they be marketers, whether they be NGOs, people in public-private partnership. Do a search, reinventing government. We don't have a government anymore. Everything has been privatized. Go on Dun & Bradstreet. Go on Manta. You're going to find out that every single agency, quote-unquote, of what used to be known as government has been privatized. They've become corporations. Get it out of your mind. And if you want to know how rights are defined in a communitarian system of governance, of scientific dictatorship, of your control, then you need to go to the Humanist Manifesto. And you need to read the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All of us need to be cognizant of this thing called responsibility to protect, or R2P as in Paul. Do a search. R2P was the justification, the legal justification under international communitarian law for all the bloodletting in the Middle East in the aftermath of 9/11. Why isn't anyone talking about these things? It shocks me. We're only going to be able to touch the surface of this thing today. But unless the listeners are simply not curious, they don't give a damn. They're too busy. They've got other concerns that are much more important. If you don't want to know what is communitarianism, what is communitarian law, what is a communitarian, then you're simply not going to, you're going to basically be living like a zombie in La La Land. And my goodness, I've been speaking about these issues for 6 years, but I'm telling you, what I see in the alternative media today, Vince, is a disorganized, chaotic effort to inculcate into the society at large, the populace, this entire notion of learned helplessness. Unless we get informed, we cannot fight, because you can't fight what you don't know and you can't see.
Very interesting that you said that. The meetup group, when I was teaching them, wanted me to teach them how to prepare, and I forked off into an area where I was teaching them how to think. They didn't like that. They wanted to learn more about physical preparedness, things that we learned over and over and over and over again. I wouldn't do it. Lark in Texas is with us. Website, larkintexas.blogspot.com. If you'd like to contact him, larkintexas@gmail.com. Lark, I just posted a link to Harvesting Organs images on page number 1. Absolutely horrible.
Well, let's avoid, if we can, read this article. The title is Learned Helplessness Through the Alternative Media. Remember the art of war. Sun Tzu. If you don't know your enemy and you don't know yourself, you can expect to lose every battle in which you engage in this life. If you know your enemy and do not know yourself, or alternately, you know yourself, you claim, but do not know your enemy, then you can expect to lose half of your battles. Only if you know yourself and your enemy can you expect to prevail in all your battles and thus win the war. And what I'm imparting to you and your listeners is something that I swear must be talked about. It's not. It's not. It's got to be. When you hear that word community, when you hear that word sustainability or sustainable development, a red flag needs to go up. That word community is guaranteed to induce a state of cognitive dissonance. The world is not what we think it is. We all learn from each other. You know, learned helplessness. Go to Britannica, anywhere, online. Is defined as a mental state in which an organism forced to bear aversive stimuli or stimuli that are painful or otherwise unpleasant becomes unable or unwilling to avoid subsequent encounters with those stimuli, even if they are, quote unquote, escapable, presumably because it has learned that it cannot control the situation. This debilitating phenomena has been demonstrated in animals as well as humans and reminds us of the Stockholm Syndrome. Do a search, look it up. Another artificially induced state of helplessness that occurs in victims. That's just the first 2 paragraphs. It's a short read. We have to up our game. I'm telling you, the communitarian law in our courts via law enforcement is a reality today. We have to know what this word means. We have to understand that the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, so-called euphemistically Obamacare, is entirely a communitarian legal instrument. This is our enemy, folks. This is the totalitarianism described by H.G. Wells in his 1939 book, The New World Order. This is what George Orwell was talking about. This is what Aldous Huxley was talking about. But the language that you think is inoffensive, harmless, that flies right over your head, the kind of crap that's being bandied about on your Sunday talk shows, they're talking about communitarian policy, and you don't even know it. And if you live in a slave labor camp, what Solzhenitsyn called a gulag archipelago. If you live in a model prison, which Jeremy Bentham styled the panopticon, then you don't know the reality of the world that you live in unless you know about these words.
And unfortunately, Lark, there are so few of us who are willing to read and learn. And the simple definition of learned helplessness is people and animals feel that they're conditioned to believe that a situation is inescapable or unchangeable, so they give up.
Let's empower ourselves. Let's not be helpless.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. Lark in Texas, thanks so much. LarkInTexas.blogspot.com.